Week 7 in the NFL. The craziest result I saw, hands down, was the Broncos Giants game. I'll get to that a little bit later when we kind of get to that point in the day. But we're starting with Thursday. Steelers and Bengals. Again, the Steelers just can't drop that game. I think based on where the odds are kind of pointing, I feel very comfortable that the Ravens are winning the AFC North. It's about the same price as the Steelers right now. I really don't care what the schedules are. Pittsburgh showed to me that when push comes to shove, I don't think their defense. That's the part about the Steelers that I think is the most surprising this year. I think, and I haven't updated my numbers yet this morning, but coming into the game, they were a bottom 10, bottom half of the league defense. That is not what Pittsburgh is. Maybe they figured things out defensively, but the Steelers are a team that absolutely relies on their defense first. Rodgers is not a guy, and he's been a little bit better over the last couple of weeks pushing the ball down the field, but I just don't think that's going to be what Aaron Rodgers is, and I don't think that's the vibe that Mike Tomlin wants. So I'm refreshing my advanced numbers right now. Let me see if I can find where the Steelers are defensively. I mean, yeah, Pittsburgh right now is 25th in EPA per play on defense. They're barely ahead of the Giants. It's just not a recipe for winning games. I mean, you got the Raiders and the Saints and teams that are the Panthers that are ahead of the Steelers right now in defensive efficiency. It's just not going to win too many games in the NFL, especially when you're on the road on a short week. Impressive performance by the Rams. Really impressive. I thought the Rams defense was – so I was on the under in that game. I thought the Rams defense hasn't been talked about enough over the last 2 years. I think Chris Shula's done just an incredible job with this defense. They are very good up front, much better than you think. And they're top 5, at least coming into the game. I don't think it's going to change after the Jaguars could barely move it. But they were top 5 in both explosive play rate, run, and pass. So – where are the big plays coming from against this Rams defense? Very difficult to defend, or very difficult to move the ball against, and very impressive. They held. I mean, to be fair, Jacksonville's defense held the Rams to 4.5 yards per play. So it's not like Matthew Stafford without Puka Nacua was slicing and dicing down the field, but they got out to the big lead, and then they just kind of sat on it in the second half. I thought the Jaguars' defense actually did a good job in the second half. But the Rams sacked Trevor Lawrence 7 times, and they held Jacksonville 0 for 2 in the red zone. But the Rams, again, without Puka Nacua, and now they'll go on the bye, and he should be healthy after the bye, very different offense. So keep an eye on that as we move forward with the Rams. Puka is just not one of those guys that when you're without him, he does so many different things. And I mean, to be fair, Jonathan Taylor is going to win Offensive Player of the Year because Puka just, isn't going to play in enough games or isn't going to be as productive in enough games, right? Like that. You need to be elite for the whole season if you want to win that award. And I thought he was tracking to win that award if he led the league in targets, receptions, yards, but now obviously missing a game, and he was hampered in that Ravens game where he didn't do much. I think it's Jonathan Taylor's award to win now. But the Rams, despite only gaining 4.5 yards per play, had a 50% success rate on offense. So they still were successful on half of their plays, didn't turn it over, didn't commit a lot of penalties. So much for jet lag, right? As Taylor Swift would say, jet lag is a choice. Nice win for the Rams. Them in San Francisco right now and Seattle. I mean, that's a really good NFC West. So we'll see the Rams keep pace. We'll see what Puka's status is coming off the bye. All right, let's get to the Sunday afternoon games. I thought Chicago's defense played really well. Spencer Rattler was terrible in that game, but I do think the Bears defense showed you something. Still don't trust Caleb Williams. He's still off script, off platform. I still think in big games, Caleb Williams is not a guy that I trust. But you credit the Bears defense. They forced 4 turnovers. They sacked Spencer Rattler 4 times. And they're legit. Like, I think the defense is playing a lot better now. And if they're going to be fair, it was the Saints offense. So I don't want to look too much into that. I'm still relatively bearish, pun intended, on the Bears. Don't trust them in a big game. And I think Chicago at the end of the day is going to be a team that if they make the playoffs, they're a one and done. But let's see what the no is actually on the Bears to make the playoffs. That would be an interesting bet right now, frankly. Because I'm pretty sure they're what, 4-2, right? The Bears are 4-2, I think. I might be wrong on that. Yeah, they're 4-2. I'm curious what their schedule, because if I remember correctly, their schedule is pretty tough down the stretch. Let's look right now. Let's scroll down. Go into BetMGM. I do have some futures bets that I will give to you later. Yeah, see, that's the thing. Like Chicago at 4-2, they're still minus 250 to miss the playoffs. So I think that's twofold. A, the NFC is just loaded, man. Like we told you, the NFC West, Niners, Rams, Seahawks, all 2 losses. NFC South, Panthers better than expected, above 500. Falcons 3-3, they're still in the mix. In the NFC North, obviously you've got the Packers and the Lions that are with 4 wins. You've got the Vikings with 3 wins. And then in the NFC East, the Cowboys and the Eagles look like they're playoff teams. Maybe not the Cowboys, but obviously the Eagles. So it's just, I think there's just a lot of mess. Like right now, the Bears, even at 4-2, they're 8th in the standings, and it's early, obviously. We'll kind of shake things out, but I did bet the Bears no to make the playoffs before the season started. I also bet under 8.5 wins. I think it's more about Chicago's schedule down the stretch. Let's talk about Chicago's schedule. So they play Baltimore, who's coming off the bye. The Ravens are going to be, I mean, that is a brutal spot for Chicago. At Baltimore with the Ravens off the bye and just pissing mad after how bad Baltimore's been the first 3 weeks or the first 6 weeks of the year. At 1-5. Cincinnati, Giants, Vikings, Steelers, Eagles. I mean, the stretch run for Chicago is brutal. So they start with the Thanksgiving Black Friday game at Philly. And then it's Packers, Browns at home, Packers at Niners, Lions. I mean, they're going to go 1-4 down the stretch for sure. I mean, they're going to win that game at home against the Browns, you would think. But Packers, Niners, Lions, Packers, Eagles. I mean, that's a really tough stretch from week 13 on. So I would not be buying the Bears hype, even though they've won 3 in a row now and their defense looked pretty good. I give credit to their defense. Looked pretty good, albeit against a bad Saints offense. The Browns beat the Dolphins 31-6. Neither team cracked 4 yards per play. The Dolphins turned it over 4 times. I mean, listen, guys, I think, and gals, I think the one thing I notice about the Dolphins is when you see Mike McDaniel on the sideline in a bad weather game, he just looks like a wimp. Like he's covered up in his windbreaker and his glasses, and he's got the hoodie on, and he's just all scrawny and like he looks cold, freezing, miserable. And I don't want to take anything away from his coaching ability. The dude absolutely knows offense. But some guys are just better as offensive coordinators than they are head coaches. Like when you see Dan Campbell on the sidelines, when you see Andy Reid on the sidelines, when you see Mike Vrabel on the sidelines, these guys are imposing physical figures. And that kind of masculinity, it filters out to the rest of the sideline. Like if your coach is in a bad weather game, like all huddled up and looking all scrawny and weak, it's just a bad look. And when you've got all these 6'3", 300-pound men that you are leading on the sidelines, I just think that there's a certain physical stature that is required to garner respect. That I know that might sound weird, but like when you look back at these cold weather games that Miami has played in the past, like when they went to Kansas City in the playoffs, I think it was last year, 2 years ago, and it was like sub-zero temperatures, and McDaniels looks like an icicle on the sidelines. Like you just don't have it. This doesn't instill a lot of confidence. So I think my take on this is I would hire Mike McDaniel to be my offensive coordinator, but I would never hire him to be my head coach. I think you need more of a physically imposing stature on the sidelines. Someone who's actually you would be afraid of running out of the tunnel. Not someone who looks like he's the coach's son. It's a weird look. And I think it's one thing if they're winning games, but they're not. They're one of the worst teams in the NFL. So you really, I don't know if he's going to get fired this week. I don't think so. I think it would have happened already. You know, it's 8:30 Eastern, or excuse me, 8:30 Pacific here Monday morning, in Vegas. I would have guessed it would have happened already. Huskers is chiming in. I want McDaniel to be the OC at Kansas City next year, and when Nagy takes the head coaching job. Listen, I don't think that's a bad plan. I think if I had an open job for an offensive coordinator or an offensive analyst or a run game coordinator or pass game coordinator, like I think I would hire Mike McDaniel. But I just don't think it works as a head coach. I just don't. I think you need a more physically imposing presence on the sidelines. Jason says if you looked across the field at him when you coach Saturdays, you'd already count on the dub. I agree. I think there's so much about, we're going to go off the NFL for a minute and we're going to go into some coaching mentality here and some football mentality. So much about football is mental. For example, to be fair, I coach 12-year-olds, so I'm not comparing this to the NFL. When I'm on the field preparing for a game, the one thing I notice, and I work directly, I'm the quarterback's coach. I work directly with the quarterback. We're warming up, we're going over the plays, we're talking about the game plan, blah, 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 blah. And then the opposing team walks out onto the field during warmups. The first thing my quarterback, and to be fair, he's 12. The first thing my quarterback says when the opposing team walks out on the field, oh, crap, that D-line looks big. Or, oh, they look small. They look puny. They look soft. There's so much about football that is intimidation and mentality. When Mike McDaniel's running out onto the field in his windbreaker and it's freezing cold and he's shivering and he can barely look at the plays because his hand, there's nothing about that that's intimidating. And I think in the NFL, it matters less because all these guys are huge and gigantic and they all are men, man amongst boys kind of vibes. But I do think there is a little bit of, man, when Mike Vrabel's my coach on the sidelines, I feel strong. When Andy Reid's my coach, he's 200, 300 pounds. He looks strong. That's the guy I want leading my team. So I do think there is a certain image that needs to be portrayed in order to be tough in this league. And I don't think Mike McDaniel's it. I'm assuming it. If it's not mid-season, he'll be fired at the end of the year. I just think that's why I thought Brian Daboll was going to be the first coach fired, and it turned out to be Brian Callahan. But you look at the ownership of that particular team. Is the owner an imposing figure? Is he involved in the team, or is he kind of just like a financial backer? In Miami, it's not. He's like that family. I think it's the Ross family. Not as involved with the team operations. They're just kind of the owners. It's really the GM Greer who has not done a good job putting the Dolphins in a strong position. So it might be both of them are gone after the season. But I would bet. I think McDaniel finishes the year. I do. I think if he would have been, I think if they were going to fire him, they would have done it already. Or maybe they're waiting until their bye, which is in week 12. Maybe that'll be the week that Mike McDaniel gets fired. But awful performance from Tua yesterday. McDaniel threw him under the bus. They went to Zach Wilson later in the game, who didn't look, or excuse me, they went to Quinn Ewers later in the game, who did not look any better. I don't know what Miami does. They look like, besides the Jets, the worst team in the NFL right now. 24% success rate on offense with 11 penalties committed in the game. Brutal performance in brutal weather. Period. End of story. All right. Let's move on. Speaking of imposing figures on the sidelines, great job by the Titans firing Brian Callahan finally. Didn't really work to spark the team. New England, Mike Vrabel, revenge game, came in and just waxed the floor with this Titans team. They turned it over twice. Tennessee did. Cam Ward got sacked 5 times. The Titans didn't even reach the red zone. Cam Ward threw a nice touchdown pass early in the game, and then it was just a whole heap and helping of nothing the rest of the game. The Pats dominated the box score. Drake May continues to look like an MVP candidate. He is not going to win the MVP this year. We said it on last week's show. Mahomes and Baker and Allen and these guys, like, there's just too many quality quarterbacks for Drake to jump those guys in year 2. You have to wait your turn to win that award. It's not going to happen this year. Now, does that mean the Patriots aren't going to make the playoffs and maybe win a playoff game? No, I could see that happening. I could. Their defense has to, continue to improve, and Drake May has to clean up the negative stuff. Right? Like, he got sacked 4 times. Like, and that's the problem with Drake May right now. The EPA is through the roof. The ADOT, he's taking shots down the field. He's aggressive, but he's taking too many sacks. He's holding on to the ball too long. He's trying to do a little bit too much, where the best quarterbacks in the NFL understand when to throttle up and when to throttle down. When do you take that check down, live to see another play? Don't try to hit the deep shot every single time. They're going to lose a game at some point this year because Drake May makes a critical error in a big spot. And then everyone's going to be like, oh, Drake May sucks. No, like, this is just the maturation of a young quarterback. You have to take the good with the bad. I love what I'm seeing. The upside, again, is through the roof. But the floor is still relatively low. We need to raise that floor, even if it means lowering the ceiling just a little bit. Not every play, but doesn't mean every play has to be a 20, 30, 40, 50-yard explosive. So, nice win by the Patriots on the road, covered the spread, covered all numbers. But still, I'm not there yet on Drake May being an MVP. He's right on the doorstep. He's a runner-up. He's going to finish 3rd or 4th or 5th in the MVP voting this year. But I still want to see a little bit more polish in his game. The belt-to-ass game of the year was in Kansas City. Vegas had absolutely nothing in this game, guys. 14% success rate. That's the lowest I've seen of any team this year. And the Chiefs at 53%. That means the net success rate was plus 39%. Belt to ass for Kansas City. The widest success rate margin I've seen in a game this year was 20% a few weeks ago. It's almost doubled that. Absolutely obliterated the Raiders. And I thought this might happen for 2 reasons. One, Vegas isn't any good. When Vegas shows you their floor might be the lowest floor in the league. Geno, I don't want to say he looks washed, but he definitely doesn't look comfortable in this offense. Maybe it's the offensive line. Maybe it's the fact that he has no receivers and Bowers is hurt. I don't know, but this is a very, like, the Chip Kelly, Geno Smith marriage looks like it's heading for a divorce very soon. And it sucks because they traded for him. And he cost the Raiders draft capital and a shitload of money. So, not a great situation for the Raiders right now. On the Chiefs side, it's just kind of ho-hum. I think midway through the second quarter, they kind of felt this one was over, and they just throttled down. Rashee Rice looked great. They fed him the ball early and often. I mean, listen, guys, people are going to hate it. You're going to hate it. The public is going to be so mad, but the Chiefs are winning the Super Bowl again. I'll say it every week. There is not a team in the AFC that I think looks on their level this year. It's actually ironic because we view the NFC as the wide open conference, and that is true. But the AFC, you kind of put 3 teams in the top tier, and no one else really has a chance. I don't know if that's the case this year. I don't know if Buffalo and Baltimore are in that top tier. I'll be honest. It might be the Chiefs and everyone else in the AFC. It just might be. I think their defense continues to improve every week with a very young secondary, but really it's the offense, guys. The offense with Rice and Worthy, I mean, they look like a unit that has like they're getting back some of the swag that they had in 2019 when they won that first Super Bowl. This is a very good Chiefs offense. Mahomes is, people hate it, but he's the best player in the sport. And it's not because of his physical talent. There's plenty of other physical quarterbacks like a Josh Allen, like a Lamar Jackson, that when they're in there, even like a Drake May, that when they're at their peak are much more dangerous than Patrick Mahomes physically. But nobody has his brain, guys. And that's the part about quarterbacking play. It goes unseen. When Mahomes is at the line of scrimmage and the defense is checking into this and rotating into that and disguising this, he knows how to put his team in the best possible scenario to win that play. And I think a lot of people get caught up in the minutia of explosive plays and this and that and, oh, show me your shit. Patrick Mahomes, if it's a 5-yard out when the defense is backing off and they're worried about the deep threat, but that 5-yard out is designed perfectly, you check out of your original play and into a new play, and then it's thrown on time, on target with the receiver's chance to get yards after the catch. It doesn't go down as a sexy, explosive play in the box score, but if you stack 10, 15, 20 of those wins over the course of a football game, you're almost unbeatable. Because if the defense is dictating this and you are just willing to slice the defense, small cut, small cut, small cut, and then boom, you'll eventually get the explosive. But people take for granted how elite he is at getting his team into and out of the right play. And I nobody in the NFL, guys, is better right now. I'm sorry. Deal with it. I know everyone hates it. Oh, the Chiefs. Oh, Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce. I hate it so much. Deal with it. We need to eliminate Chiefs derangement syndrome from our mind and appreciate the greatness that we are watching at the quarterback position. Nobody is playing this, but they have changed the picture on him so many times. First, they were giving him the deep shots those early years, and then all of a sudden, everybody was playing cover 2 shell. And he took a little time to adjust to that, figured it out. Now what are you going to do? Because now you can't really play cover 2 against them because they're going to run it with Hunt and with Pacheco. And you can't back off the line of scrimmage because these receivers are elite yaksters. Worthy and Rice and Thornton and Brown. I mean, this is this team is dangerous on offense. The quicker you figure it out and remove the derangement from your mind, the quicker you'll be willing to make money. I should have just laid the 12 this weekend with Kansas City, but I bet the Chiefs to win the AFC West at plus 335 when everyone was jumping ship at 0-2. And that's turning out to be a great bet because look how Denver looked yesterday and look how the Chargers looked yesterday. I mean, guys, the Chiefs are winning this division. They're going to the Super Bowl. Deal with it. Nice win by the Eagles yesterday. 7.5 yards per play on a good Brian Flores defense. The one thing I noticed yesterday about the Eagles is they were going a lot more play action under center. The knock on Kevin Patullo this year, and we talked about it over the summer. I did a full film study on him. The knock on Kevin Patullo this year is he was not willing to throw the ball under center. If they were in shotgun, they're throwing it. If they're in pistol under center, they're running it. Well, made a little adjustment, and maybe it was maybe it was Sirianni, maybe it was somewhere else, Loeffler, the quarterback's coach. Like maybe there was another voice in that room that said, "Hey, listen, we are becoming too predictable on offense. Everybody knows that when we're under center, we're running the ball. So let's throw it from under center." And lo and behold, Jalen Hurts has his best game of the year. The Eagles defense still, Carson Wentz didn't exploit it that well. They turned it over twice, but 51% success rate allowed on defense for this Eagles team. They were fortunate. They held Minnesota to 1 for 6 in the red zone, or else they probably don't win this game. And they won the turnover margin. But I need to see more from the Eagles defense. I am not there on Philly being this, bona fide Super Bowl contender. I think the NFC is really tough this year. There are a lot of good teams in the NFC. I don't think Philly's even in the top 3 right now, frankly, in terms of how I would grade teams in the NFC. I would put the NFC North right now ahead, for sure. Tampa might be ahead. San Francisco might be ahead if they're healthy. I don't know if they're going to get healthy, God willing, with their voodoo magic, but the Rams for sure are ahead. You're telling me if it's Detroit against Philly right now, I would take the Lions. Rams against Philly right now, I would take the Rams. Packers against Philly right now, I would probably take the Packers. I think the Bucs at full strength against Philly right now, with those receivers against that secondary, yeah. I think I'm taking 3 or 4 teams in the NFC right now over Philly. Doesn't mean Philly can't improve, but I still think they're very one-dimensional on offense. I need to see more from Hurts. I want to see him stack multiple games together like that and figure out a way to keep the defense off balance. You've got nothing from Saquon Barkley this year. Not a knock on him. I think teams are taking him away and forcing Jalen Hurts to beat you. But coming off of a performance like he had last year, wouldn't be surprised. I bet the under on Saquon's rushing yards prop. That looks like one of the better bets that I've made in a while. The Jets suck. They're the worst team in the NFL. They're 0-7. They scored 6 points and had 3.7 yards per play against Carolina. Carolina didn't play great either, but the Jets won the idiot battle of turnovers. They actually did better in the penalty department than they've done in recent weeks, but didn't score a touchdown in the red zone in their one shot. And Justin Fields and Tyrod Taylor got sacked 6 times. I have no idea who's playing quarterback for the Jets. I don't really think it matters. Fields and Taylor are both coin flips right now in terms of who's better. Aaron Glenn and Darren Moogie made that decision to run out of town an MVP quarterback. And I know the Rodgers thing didn't go well the first 2 years, but can't go any worse than what's happening with the Jets quarterback situation right now. And you're seeing Pittsburgh win games with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers was the problem. The problem is they're undisciplined. There's no culture. And they suck. Period. End of story. Like, they're a bad, like, when you're a bad football team, you're just waiting for the bad things to happen. When something good happens, you're hesitant. You're like, oh my God, what? It's almost like my romantic situation. Like, when I go on a date and it's good, I'm like, well, where's the red flag? Where is she hiding it? Because I've been hurt so many times that you're just expecting the negative. That's the problem with the Jets right now. Big problem with the Jets right now is there's a anvil that is waiting to drop at any moment. And when you don't have a quarterback in the NFL, you're not going to win. And the Jets do not have a quarterback. The good news is they're probably going to go 0-17 or 1-16 or something like that. And they're probably going to have the number 1 pick. And they'll probably have their choice of quarterbacks. I don't think Aaron Glenn's the guy, though. They look unprepared and completely lifeless on the side. Like, he doesn't look like a head coach that gets it. He looks like a head coach that should be a defensive coordinator, the anti-McDaniel, who should be an offensive coordinator. All right, wildest game of the day happened in Denver. The Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter, and that was the most ever scored by a team that was getting shut out in the first 3 quarters. This game was on drugs. I had the Broncos. I laid 7. I also had a bunch of teasers that were tied to Denver. I thought this game was done. I really did. Multiple times. Even after Jackson Dart threw that pick, I still was thinking to myself, he's going to make a play and they're going to get a first down on the next drive, and Denver's going to not be able to get the ball back. But you credit the Broncos defense, man. Made some big plays in the fourth quarter. Then they allowed the final drive for Jackson Dart to march it right down the field. And then Bo Nix, he's taken a lot of heat so far, and rightfully so. I think Peyton deserves a lot of it too. I don't think they're putting him in the best position to succeed. What I'm seeing with Bo Nix right now is a quarterback that is still kind of playing with kid gloves. Like, I don't think they're giving him full access to the offense. You know how they say, like, we don't have access to 100% of our brain. We can only access X percent. I think the Broncos are only allowing him to do X percent. Maybe they don't fully trust him. Maybe they think their defense is good enough to win 13-10 most weeks. But it's kind of like the Drew Aller effect. Like, just let the kid rip. I think he's a talented kid. I really do. I mean, you saw it in the fourth quarter when they finally let it rip. He was chucking it all over the field. He scored that. You don't see quarterback pin and pull too much, but he scored the go-ahead touchdown on a quarterback counter play. Pin and pull usually is a toss to the running back. We see this a lot in college football. We don't see a lot in the NFL, but with quarterback pin and pull, I really like that wrinkle in the quarterback run game for Sean Payton's offense. But I just need to see more. I just need to see more explosiveness. You've got really good weapons. I love Sutton. I love Mims. I love Harvey. I mean, they have good players on the outside, and their offensive line is legit. Like, let this kid rip. 5.4 yards per play against the Giants defense. I guess it was good enough, but they put themselves in some really bad situations early in the game, and I can't explain. The comeback was just wild. Anyone who ever says to you that football is not the best sport, show them the fourth quarter of this Giants-Broncos game. These games are never over, guys. You're going to get exposed on old takes if you tweet, "Oh, this game's done." Like, these games are never over. They are never over. I think the Giants had like a 99.8% chance of winning, up 19 with like 5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. It's just an insane comeback. But credit Denver. Big win. And they're in the mix in the AFC West and in the AFC playoff race. The Indianapolis Colts, guys, I didn't think this was going to be the game that they were going to get completely derailed, because The Chargers are dealing with a lot of injuries right now, and especially on the offensive line, and I think the pass rush for Indy's legit. So I thought Herbert was going to be under pressure. He did get sacked 3 times, but really it was the offense. I mean, 54% success rate, 7 yards per play. Shane Steichen is drawing it up right now. Jonathan Taylor looks like the offensive player of the year. I would not make that bet right now because it's even odds, and he gets nicked up 1 or 2 games. Those odds are going to drop significantly, and he could still win it. But I would definitely look to Shane Steichen to win Coach of the Year. We'll get to that a little bit later in the show. Chargers, guys, listen. We tried to warn you on the Chargers. Justin Herbert's clutch in the fourth quarter. Those numbers are great, but those offensive line injuries have a way of really piling up. I think this Chargers team is still what we thought they were, even though they started fast with the hot start. I think they were 3-0. They're 1-3 since. I'm not there on the Chargers. I'm just not. I think. Let me check those standings. Actually, I might be wrong on that. Yeah, I was right. 3-0 start. Then they lost to the Giants. They lost to the Commanders. Come back, barely beat the Dolphins. Right, like needed a desperate late comeback to beat the Dolphins. That showed nothing yesterday, and then got absolutely waxed by the Colts. Chargers schedule coming up: Vikings, Titans, Steelers, Jags, Raiders. I think they're a 9-8 team that probably just misses the playoffs. I bet under 9.5 wins on the Chargers before the season started. I feel like that's probably a pretty decent bet. Dallas, belt to ass against Washington. Weird game. Dallas just got off to the really fast start. Didn't really look back. Jaden Daniels got hurt. Took a bunch of sacks. I don't really know. Washington is a weird team. I was high on them coming into the year. I actually did bet Washington pre-flop to be a playoff team and to be a team that goes over their win total, but not the vibes this year. Not the vibes. I mean, you lose that game to Chicago. You should have never lost that game to Chicago with the fumble. And then you let that linger with just a gross performance in Dallas. And then they play the Chiefs and the Seahawks. I mean, their next 3 games, Chiefs, Seahawks, Lions. I mean, good luck. They're probably going to lose all 3 of those games. And they're probably going to be 3-7. The regression train hitting really hard for Washington this year after an incredible season last year. Maybe they were not as good as their awesome record was last year. And then finally, Packers, Cardinals. This was the one game I got right in my contest yesterday. I took the Cardinals plus 6.5. They got outgained by Green Bay, barely. Packers didn't look great on offense. Neither team cracked 5 yards per play. The Packers are a team that are going to win games but not cover a lot of numbers this year when they're the big favorite, right? Like, I just don't think Packers touchdown road favorite makes sense to me. They play at a snail's pace. Floor doesn't show urgency. Like, they just want to win games, which is fine. Listen, you win games in the NFL, you're in the playoffs, maybe win the division. I think the Packers still would be my choice to win the division. Even though the Lions do look legit, the Packers have they have the game in hand, so I've got to give them the benefit of the doubt right now. But I think Green Bay is not like one of those, like, they're not as good as those first 2 weeks showed. When they were moving it up and down against everyone, they looked like the best team in the NFL. Like, I think that was kind of a flash in the pan. I think they're good, not great offensively. I think Jordan Love, they don't take as much available yards as I'd like to see them take. I really thought they could have went into Arizona yesterday and just wiped the floor with them. The number was certainly telling you they were going to, but I think the ceiling's a little lower on Green Bay. I think I don't know if they're going to go to the Super Bowl in the NFC. The NFC Super Bowl race is just a crapshoot right now. Any of these teams could go. I think the Packers could get hot down the stretch and go. I think having home field is going to be huge for Green Bay. If the Packers can somehow get home field advantage, that Lambeau Field in January ain't no joke. That would be the deciding factor. Because having Tampa go to Green Bay, right? Like, let's say NFC Championship game, San Francisco, Tampa, Detroit, indoor team, Rams, indoor team. Having those teams go to Lambeau Field in late January, I just think that's a huge, huge advantage for the Packers. Right now, it's Packers 4-1-1, Tampa 5-1 at the top of the NFC right now. The difference is Green Bay's loss was in the AFC. So the Bucks right now have one conference loss. The Packers have 0 conference losses. And those two teams do not play each other this year. So the Packers Bucks tiebreaker, let's say they both finish with the same record atop the NFC, it'll be conference wins. Conference win percentage. So that's important. And we'll see how Tampa does tonight against Detroit. Who knows? They might have their second loss in conference play after tonight. By the way, Packers at Lions, November 27th. That is Thanksgiving Day. That is going to be one of the best Thanksgiving days in recent memory in terms of games. That game is going to be huge. Absolutely huge. All right, that is our NFL recap for Week 7. Bunch of buys this week. Keep an eye on your fantasy lineup. 6 teams on bye this week. So, and we got actually, excuse me, I didn't recap the Falcons Giants game last night. I actually fell asleep really early last night. Kind of a boring game, to be honest with you. Not really much to get to there. I think the Niners did what they had to do. Right, they got a little healthier. Jennings came back. Kittle came back. Both of those guys had impacts in the game. Kittle more in the blocking sense. He wasn't really impacted much in the offensive targets department. But Jennings was huge, had a bunch of first downs. McCaffrey is a beast, guys. Christian McCaffrey, as long as he's healthy, the Niners have a chance to win. I don't really care if it's Mac Jones or Brock Purdy. You would expect Purdy to come back and maybe elevate this offense a little bit in terms of his physical traits. Like, he's a little bit more elusive in the pocket, I think, than Mac Jones. But I think Mac Jones has done a good job with this offense. Honestly, beat the Rams, beat the Falcons, couple of nice wins, and the Niners right now 5-2, sitting atop the NFC West because of their win over the Rams. Things lighten up a little bit over the next few weeks. They get to play the Giants, they play the Cardinals, the Panthers, the Browns, the Titans. But they've got a huge game coming up against the Rams in 2 weeks. 3 weeks, excuse me. That's going to be a massive game. If they're able to win that game at home against the Rams, I think they win the division. If not, then it'll be wide open down the stretch. Okay, that concludes our recap for NFL Week 7.